Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always, told out of voice of radio. So today, I'm going to show you a weird deck. I love showing you Japanese deck lists. You probably realise that by now. Some I show you are crushing the metagame and are doing absolutely amazingly. Some are fun little niche decks, some are speed decks, but every so often, I get to show you a deck that's just awesome. And today I can. Shout out to the lovely Code64X over on Twitter for including me in here. And annoyingly, it's one of these, it's quite hard to actually get the image of the card. But we got the image of the card, and it's really fun, and I love it. And I think we should all get just a little bit excited about it. It is a Spiritomb Unknown deck. And part of the reason I'm so gosh darned excited here is because this is one of those decks, it happens occasionally, where I just did not see it coming. I had no inkling whatsoever that this was actually going to start being a deck, and it's awesome. Now, it actually uses the new Spiritomb, which is going to be coming out in Rebel Clash. Now, this Spiritomb has got two attacks. The first attack, for 1 darkness energy, discards a top card of either player's deck. Oh, cool. Sounds like fun. It's not the reason we play the card. The second attack, 1 darkness, 1 colorless, puts a damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon for each of your Pokemon in the discard pile. So the theory here should be fairly simple. We're just going nuts getting energy in the discard. Now, huge caveat as we get going here. This is an expanded deck. That's very important. This is an expanded deck. It is not a standard format deck, but it's so good I just had to show it to you anyway. Now, the Spiritomb is your main attacker here, and the goal is very simple. You're going to spread a bunch of damage around. You're going to get a lot of what I call cheeky damage. That is damage without attacking. And then you're going to use Spiritomb to come in and basically finish everybody off. And then you're going to go home and have a wonderful old time. Sounds like fun. But there are a bunch of other Pokemon played here as 4-offs. Remember, what you're trying to do is get as many Pokemon in the discard pile as possible. So you're actually playing 4 copies of Mew. But of course, we're playing that lovely Mew that can just copy your attacks. It is a Mew from Fates Collide, and it allows you to use the attacks of any of your Pokemon in play. Now, the reason we use Mew is exceedingly simple. It's the reason we've been using Mew and Expanded for a long time. Dimension Valley. Dimension Valley reduces the attack cost of all psychic Pokemon by 1 colorless energy. I'm still amazed it hasn't been banned and expanded, but it hasn't. And that means now it's a single energy attack. Now all of a sudden you can use Mew to use this attack for a single energy, and that's kind of ridiculous. The other Pokemon, there are a couple that we probably should have expected to be played as 4-offs here. One of them is the Unknown, which has got Farewell Letter. Put it on your bench, discard it, draw a card. In any of these kind of decks where you're trying to get Pokemon in the discard pile, if it's legal like it is in Expanded, Unknown becomes ridiculous. And then, of course, it's probably a good idea to start playing Giratina. Giratina here is amazing, because if it's in the discard, you may choose to put it from your discard pile onto your bench and put 1 damage counter on each of 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. You get extra damage on the field. And then hopefully you can just discard it again. And that's kind of the point here. You can just keep rolling with this. Discard it to do the extra damage, or bring it from the discard onto the bench to do the extra damage. This is not a deck that purely relies on Spiritomb, because again, you're only playing 20 Pokemon in this deck. And 20 Pokemon sounds like a lot, but this is essentially the new version of a deck like Vespiquen or Flareon. And the idea of only playing 20 Pokemon in a Flareon Vespiquen list is a little bit ridiculous. This is not the same deck. Also, it's a basic Pokemon, which really helps with consistency. We play a couple of Execute, because you can put it from your discard pile into your hand, so it's really good for using any cards like Ultra Ball that discard cards from your hand without having to actually discard. You pick up 2 Execute, discard them with Ultra Ball, and Ultra Ball just becomes search your deck for any Pokemon. And we play a couple copies of Weezing, which is probably a good time to say we also play Roxy. Weezing, if discarded with Roxy, does 1 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon, and Roxy lets you discard 2 Pokemon from your hand, drawing 3 cards for each one discarded. Even if you weren't playing Weezing, Roxy would be an awesome option for a deck like this, because you want to discard Pokemon as early as you can to be doing extra damage. That sounds good. However, discarding Weezing as well just sounds awesome. And the reality is you're not doing 300 damage with this deck. This is not a deck where you're doing 300 damage. What you're actually doing with this deck is more like a 1-hit KO on smaller Pokemon, 2-hit KO on bigger Pokemon, but spreading a bit of extra damage around as well. The fact that you're relying on basic Pokemon here really, really helps. And of course, to go back to Mew for a second, remember that Mew only copies basic Pokemon. So Mew was never an option with Vespiquen or Flareon. It is an option here. And now all of a sudden you've got 8 of your main attacker, so there's no recovery. So okay, you're not getting the big giant 1-hit KOs, but you don't need to be getting the big giant 1-hit KOs here, because you're playing a bunch of basic Pokemon. You can afford some 2-hit KOs. Now, I said 20 Pokemon, I lied, it's 23, I do apologise. We are playing 2 copies of Shaymin and 1 copy of Oranguru here. Shaymin lets you draw until you got 6 cards in your hand when you play it to your bench. Oranguru lets you draw until you got 3 cards in your hand, but it's an every turn kind of thing. That sounds pretty gosh darned good to me. The thing is, the tricks in this deck keep going. I've already mentioned Roxy, but we're also playing Nanu here. I adore Nanu. Nanu's another reason we're just not bothering with any Pokemon recovery in this deck. Nanu lets you choose a basic Darkness Pokemon in your discard pile and switch it with one of your Pokemon in play. So you can use a Giratina here, get it onto the bench to use its ability, then use Nanu to swap it for a Spiritomb, and just keep attacking. It's pretty ridiculous. Obviously, our A-spec of choice here is Computer Search. The rule is always that Computer Search needs to be used if you're setting up, and Dowsing Machine is used if you need extra tricks in the mid to late game. This is a deck where you need to get rolling nice and quickly. If you can hit for like 150 a turn with the extra cheeky damage, you should be onto a winner here. Computer Search to get rolling in the early game is important. We do play Guzma for a little bit of gusting, it's expanded. Ultra Ball is our Pokemon search of choice, and obviously Dimension Valley becomes amazing. Though we do play a copy of Chaotic Swell here, which is really just a brilliant counter stadium. If there are any stadiums you're particularly worried about, you drop a Chaotic Swell down, and then if your opponent would replace it, they don't replace it. Sounds like fun. You're trying to get cards in the discard pile, so obviously Battle Compressor, letting you just discard 3 cards from your deck, is ridiculous. Another card I still can't believe they're letting us use and expanded. And Floatstone becomes very, very important, because you're going to have non-Spiritomb / Mew on the field, and you need to be attacking every turn. Remember, in this deck, we are not going for the giant 300 damage KOs. It's not on the cards. It is consistent 1-hit KO on weaker Pokemon, 2-hit KO on higher Pokemon, while spreading a bit of cheeky damage around. You've got to be attacking every turn. That is important. That is a big difference between the Vespiquen Flareon lists and this. You've got to be going every single turn here. Pretty important. Obviously, Versus Seeker also becomes amazing while you're discarding cards. Versus Seeker lets you reuse supporters. That's ridiculous. And Counter Energy becomes an amazing card here, because it lets you, if you're behind on prizes, pay Spiritomb's attack cost for a single energy. Obviously, you want to be using Mew where you can, and Spiritomb when you're just attaching twice, but that's not always an option. This becomes an option, and it's a pretty gosh darned good option indeed. I love this deck. This is exactly my kind of deck, and over in the expanded format, this is a kind of deck which you will probably see me playing in the near future. I think it's brilliant, and I love it. But I'd like to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice, and then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are pretty awesome nonetheless. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.